And current technology being what it is, we check in with Jim Ryan, who is live from Havana, Cuba. Good morning, Jim Ryan.
Good morning, McGraw. There is sort of a subdued sense of mourning, an officially imposed sense of mourning across the country here at the death of Fidel Castro. The announcement made over the weekend by Raul Castro, who has essentially been the leader of this country for the last 8 years. For the next 8.
As you can imagine, we've getting a hookup between Cuba and St. Louis is kind of tough.
Well, this communist thing was kind of over.
Clearly, somebody didn't like what Jim Ryan was saying, and so they disconnected. Jim, are you there?
I am here, yeah. Sales are still pretty sketchy here, and people realize that across this country that things will change very slowly in terms of communication, the infrastructure, even the cars in the street. I'm looking at a 1953 Chevrolet rolling down the street. You see that all over this country. Older cars that have been cobbled together and kept running all these years since the revolution happened, and people were essentially caught in a time warp.
Jim Ryan, we know what people in the U.S. and in Florida think of Castro, but what do the people of Cuba think of Castro, and are they allowed to voice their true opinions down there?
Well, I talked to a man a few minutes ago about that, and there is kind of a quiet feeling that things may get better in the years ahead. One man talked to me, though, who only knows the leadership of Fidel Castro. Most people here, that's all they've known. Talks about his ability to go to college, the healthcare system here, which he says was improved by Fidel Castro, and but at the same time, I think they're ready for change here. They like to see the easy restrictions from Washington, travel restrictions and trade restrictions. Now they're hoping that life does improve here on this island.
What now, is Raul Castro going to remain the head? Was he the head? He was sort of a stand-in, wasn't he, at least for a while?
Well, he was. He sort of took over officially 8 years ago. 10 years ago, really, is when Fidel Castro was sick enough that Raul stepped in and became the leader, essentially the leader of the country. But he says he's going to step aside in 2018 and the reins over to somebody else. But presumably it'll be somebody handpicked by Raul Castro and the people closest to him.
We heard from your report at the top of the hour that there's a mourning period and a grace period. Are we seeing large crowds as his body travels around the island?
Yeah, that process hasn't begun yet, but there will be. He was cremated right after he died. His ashes in an urn will be taken from place to place around the country, and the places that were relevant to him during his life. And large crowds of students have been demonstrating. Pro-Fidel Castro demonstrations have been happening. Other than that, it's sort of business as usual. I'm in the Plaza de San Francisco, right in downtown Havana, and people are going about their business.
Elian Gonzalez made a statement too, didn't he, about all this?
He did. He called Fidel Castro his father. He's been living a fairly quiet life since the big. He hit the international stage about 16 years ago. He's 23 years old now. He, of course, was making his way across the Florida Straits with his mother. His mother didn't make it. She died. He eventually made it to Miami, and a court case ensued, and he was ordered, brought back here to Havana. Came here as a national hero and congratulated by Fidel Castro at that time.
Yeah. Jim Ryan, be safe, and if you can bring a couple of Cuban cigars back, there's nothing wrong with that either. Jim Ryan, ABC News correspondent, live from Havana. Jim, thanks for checking in.
Hey, thanks, McGraw.
You got it. Coming up next hour, we're going to check into a former ambassador, the visiting fellow with the American Enterprise Institute for Washington, D.C. We're going to talk about what happens now that Fidel Castro has passed. Do we open up the island? Is it going to be much more friendly, much more commerce, much more trade? I know people are dying to sort of open up Cuba. Some people want to see it before it becomes Americanized, if you will, so much so that our president-elect was trying to build a hotel down there a few decades ago. Excuse me. So we'll check in with Ambassador Roger Noriega next.